Well, things got worse for the Blue Jackets. Let's talk about whatever that was that happened last night on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bet if you win. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I almost put some money on last night's game, and I am real glad I didn't because that was atrocious. By far the worst effort of the road trip, I thought, or the California swing of the road trip anyway. I actually, just before recording this, went back and rewatched just the highlights, so like just the goals. And every single goal just was like, what is happening? Everything here is bad. Like, Elvis looked like he didn't know what he was doing. The defense in front of him looked god-awful. You let the 21st best power play in the league score on you in 6 seconds. Like, there's a lot to talk about in that what happened in this game. A lot of bad, some good, question mark, we'll see. But, like, that was such a 23-24 Blue Jackets loss. You know, how many times last season did we see them spring out to an early lead and then fold like a cheap suit in the second period and then spend the third period just trying to chase the lead that they previously had and you know, empty net goal. That is all she wrote, folks. You know, it's basically a 4-2 win. You know, 5-2 with the empty netter, but as we all know on the show, empty netters don't count. What are we doing here? Like, I expected a much better response in the second period because the Blue Jackets were good in the first period is the thing. Like, I thought that they looked strong. They looked well connected. They looked like everyone was on the same page. They outshot the Kraken by what, like 1 billion to 3, 18-6. And then the second period happened, and it looked like the teams had swapped jerseys. Quite frankly, the Kraken clearly got yelled at super hard in the intermission, and they were like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess we'll start trying now." Blue Jackets decided, I guess, hey, we scored 2 goals in 22 seconds. What if we just kind of coast for the rest of the game? And it went about as you'd expect for it, you know. Again, the top 6 is invisible. Like, again, Sean Monahan is not the only guilty party here, but he is the one that I think is the most egregious in terms of like the kind of the cold streak that he's on right now. He hasn't had a point in 4 games. He had an assist against Washington. That was his last point. He had a goal versus Winnipeg. Nothing against the Islanders. 2 goals versus Edmonton. So in his last, 9 games, he's got 4 points and none in his last 4. Invisible. Like, has just completely stopped existing. Adam Fantilli, also invisible. Like, I don't know what's happening here. I really don't. Like, and I like it's partially it's, you know, the regressing to the mean and going a little bit beyond that. Fantilli has 2 assists in his last 5 games. He only has 7 points on the season, like, which is about half as many points as I wanted him to have at this point. You know, hasn't scored a goal since Edmonton, where he had a goal and an assist, October 28th. has not scored a goal in the month of November. Like, Marchenko has showed up. He didn't show up last night, but Marchenko showed up a little bit. Chinikov has showed up a little bit. But, like, where's the top six? Where have they gone? That was the most frustrating thing, I think, is when you're relying on your bottom six to do all of the scoring, that's a problem. And, like, credit to the bottom six, and credit to especially that Corrali, Aston Reese, LeBanc line, because I feel like that has been not a great line for the Blue Jackets. You know, I've talked a lot about how Sean Corrali has seen his ice time get cut in half, basically. And that line still had the fewest, like the least ice time of any of the Blue Jackets forwards. LeBanc had 11:01, Corrali had 11:49, and Aston Reese had 13:22. They were the only guys that showed up. Like, what's going on? I genuinely don't understand. Like, there has to be some kind of reason for this. Damon Severson, we didn't even talk about the defense. Damon Severson, atrocious last night, I thought. Moving Provorov back to the left side, suddenly all of the problems that we saw from him last season that we haven't seen when he's been playing on the right side have magically returned now that he's back on the left side. And someone was like, yeah, they want to protect their best trade deadline asset. They want to get him back to the left side because that's where his natural position is. That's where teams are going to want to put him if they trade for him. What? It makes no sense to me. Like, he's been thriving on the right. He's been thriving playing with Zach Werenski. I get that you wanted to play Dante Fabro up there and see how he was in this game, and he was there. He was fine. Wasn't the worst defenseman by any stretch of the imagination, but also wasn't the best. You know, he was about what I expected for a guy playing his first game with a brand new team. But beyond that, like, how was Jake Christensen and Jack Johnson the best defense pairing last night? Because they were. Like, I'm fascinated by what happened in this game. And I watched the game. I didn't watch it live. I watched it this morning when I woke up. And then like I said, I recently rewatched the highlight package just to kind of make sure that I knew what I was talking about in terms of who was doing what for which goal. None of it makes sense. This game was so stupid. And, like, Elvis was not the worst. That was not the worst Elvis performance I've seen this season. He wasn't great. Needs to be better. 4 goals on 32 shots. I don't think he was helped by the fact that his defense just decided to do that in front of him for the entire game. Like, first goal, Dante Fabro gets tangled up. Ty Cartier is allowed to just kind of hang out in front of the net for whatever reason. Second goal, Damon Severson is doing something. Third goal, I think, was the power play goal. Fine, whatever. Fourth goal, breakaway for Will Borgen, who is definitely a real player that I have heard of that, like, plays in the National Hockey League. Like, first goal of the season, obviously. He's got 9 goals in 230 games so far this season. This is not me saying that he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, that's the guy that you're going to let score on the breakaway? What are we doing here? Just a complete cluster mess from start to finish. And I don't know, like, is this rock bottom? Is this as bad as it's going to get? Is there worse coming for the Blue Jackets? Like, their offense is stone cold. The defense apparently has decided that they don't like playing defense anymore. The goaltending has regressed in a big way. You know, again, Elvis was not really to blame for whatever all of that was last night, but they do need Elvis to be better. I'm just pulling up his numbers right now. He's dropped to an .896 save percentage, which could be worse, I guess. You know, like, I miss when he was at like a 912 for like 5 minutes. That was fun, right? And it does bring into question, like, Tarasov's been very poor also. Elvis slightly better. Elvis has historically not performed super great against the Penguins. Do they throw him in net anyway, or do they try and see if Tarasov can figure his game out? Like, again, because that's what's coming up next. They finish this West Coast swing. They go back to Columbus, and on Friday they get to play the Penguins, which is going to be just the stupidest, dumbest, most annoying game in the world to watch. We're going to talk about that kind of later this week. The Blue Jackets have a couple of days off, and there's some other things that I want to talk about. But like, is this rock bottom for the Blue Jackets? Like, is the only way now up? I want to talk about that after we take a very quick break here on Locked On Blue Jackets. I want to tell you about our new friends at Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. So this year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, when you shop early, get a $30 reward card and score an extra $30 off for promo code NHL. With 5 generations of experience, they have consistently delivered the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at only $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners are going to get an extra $30 with promo code NHL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NHL. Minimum purchase may apply. I also have to let you know about SelectQuote, the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing only: teamwork. Teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, but SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. If you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million. You don't have to go to a doctor. There's no medical exam required. And these policies are more affordable than you think. You could get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 a month. So head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/LOCKEDON-NHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Is this rock bottom for the Blue Jackets? Probably not. I think that they can continue to disappoint us in ways that we haven't even imagined yet. And like, again, the start of the season was so good that there's still like a little part of me that's wondering, like, what if they just go back to that? The Blue Jackets have historically not fared very well in the California swing in recent years. So maybe getting back to nationwide, where they have been quite good this season, is what they need. Unfortunately, they are going to have to play the Penguins to do so, but that, again, we'll talk about that in a minute here, or in a little bit. We're not going to talk about it in today's episode. We'll talk about it in an episode further down the road. Who are the Blue Jackets? Like, are they the team that we saw in October? Are they the team we saw in November? Are they somewhere in the middle? Like, that's my guess, honestly, is the Blue Jackets are probably not as good as they were to start the season when they were scoring 6 goals every other game, literally every other game. They're probably not as bad as this 6-game losing streak has led us to believe. And like, partially, you know, of the 6-game losing streak, like, they probably deserve to win at least 3 of them. However, they didn't, and really, like, wins are what count in the standings. You know, they don't give points for moral victories. They don't give points for, like, hey, you really deserve to win, so even though you got outscored 5-2, we're going to give you the W anyway. Like, it's tough to sit here, and Dean Everson has said something to this effect as well, of like, well, you can sit here all day and talk about how much the Blue Jackets deserve to win, but the fact of the matter is they didn't, you know? So what do they do now? Like, how do they get over this? How do they reset? They've got a couple days off now. They played last night, Tuesday. They don't play again until Friday. Presumably, they are spending today flying home, and then they've got all day tomorrow and most of Friday to prepare for the Penguins coming to town. Is the answer to get them back on the ice, get them drilling, get them skating? Is the answer to send them away from the rink, tell them to reset, come back in on Friday and hope for the best? Like, I don't know is the answer to that. Like, I have a lot of like half-baked theories about like what I think would help the team and like what I personally would do if I was the head coach, but at a certain point you have to just kind of accept that this is what's happening, and you can't like, again, they get 2 days off. They're going to spend one of those days traveling. Like, that flight from Seattle to Columbus is what, like 4-5 hours? That's, I assume that they'll probably leave mid-morning. They'll get back mid-afternoon. Like, then your day's basically gone. So they have, about a day and a half. I don't know if it's better for them to take that day and a half, again, to unplug, to reset, or if it's better for them to get dragged in and skated until they want to puke tomorrow. I don't necessarily think that bag skating a team is the most effective, like, it's in the same way that I don't think that yelling is the most effective. Sometimes you need stern words, let's say, which I think Dean Everson is very good at. I feel like he's very good at stern words and like looking disappointed, as opposed to like screaming and effing and blinding and all of that stuff. Not that he doesn't effing blind and swear and cuss and yell until his face turns purple, but I don't know that that's his like default setting in a way that it is for some coaches. For better or worse, I do think the Blue Jackets, again, I talked about this in yesterday's episode, I think. At a certain point, the Blue Jackets have to grit their teeth and just bear down, and if they have to get the ugliest, stupidest, greasiest, dirtiest, all the other cliche, intangible words for, like, gritting your teeth and grinding out a win, like, if they've got to do that, then so be it. Again, I'm hesitant to label any upcoming game as like a quote unquote like get right game. Because I feel like I've said that for about 4 games in a row. And like, again, the Blue Jackets coming up, they play Pittsburgh on Friday, and then they play Montreal on Saturday. Both games are against opponents that are also struggling. But the Kraken was struggling. The Ducks were struggling. The Sharks were struggling. What are we doing here? At a certain point, you've got to accept that sometimes you've got to win a game. Just win one, and then go from there. And I do genuinely think that might be like, I don't think winning a game will like magically erase all of the worrying things that have kind of cropped up in the Blue Jackets game over the last, let's say, week and a half. But I do think it'll go a long way for confidence. And also momentum is a thing. If you can get a good, solid win, you can use that to roll on, and again, I don't think they're going to magically become a brand new team when they take the ice on Friday. I think being home will help. Being a nationwide will help, definitely. Not being on the road will help. Even odds on whether this team shows up for the game against the Penguins. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. Again, there's really no way to predict which team you're going to get against the Pittsburgh Penguins specifically, despite the fact that, like, even in the, let's say, the heydays of the rivalry, there's like 2 guys left from that on the Blue Jacket side of things, and then there's like 3 or 4 guys left on the other side, and we're counting Crosby, Malkin, and Letang in that. So a lot of the old disagreements, let's say, have moved on, but for whatever reason, the Blue Jackets still don't quite know how to deal with the Penguins. Being on home ice will help, I think. They've beaten them on home ice last season, and I think the season before that. They haven't won in Pittsburgh since, like, the Obama administration, I feel like, which is a wild thing to say, in the year 2024. But it's really tough to sit here and be like, well, if we just win one game, that will fix everything. But also it might fix some things, you know? I want to talk a little bit more about that, but first I want to take a very quick break here on Locked On Blue Jackets. I've got to talk to you about FanDuel right now. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Just go in, bet on whatever the heck you want, find the heaviest favorite you can, put $5 on it. If it comes through, you're going to get $150 that you can spend on whatever you want. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and all other sports all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you can do live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, if you win your first $5 bet, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking a little bit about is this rock bottom for the Blue Jackets? How do they climb out of this? How do they stop this free fall that they're in? And unfortunately, I do think it is a little bit of not a mind game per se, but there is psychologically losing games is stressful. It is not fun. Which is, understatement of the friggin' millennium there. But the problem is that when you start losing games and they start ramping up, and I talked about this, I think I was talking about this in relation to the Sharks, who lost 9 games to open the season. When you start getting to loss 5 or 6, you start overthinking, you start overcompensating, you start losing confidence in yourself, in your teammates, in your ability to win. And I think that's a little bit of what happened last night. Is they got up 2-0, they got really excited. The Kraken scored a quick goal to start the second period, and they just kind of crumpled, which is what we saw last year. It looked so much like a performance from last year that I honestly couldn't believe it, because that's not the Blue Jackets that we've seen in this season so far. Like, they found other interesting and fun and exciting ways to lose, but we haven't seen like a typical 23-24 Blue Jackets loss of, we're up 2-0. We blinked and now we're down 3-2, which I think makes it maybe the most frustrating loss. Again, the Washington loss sucked because no one showed up for it. The Kings loss sucked. The Sharks loss was frustrating. This was more so than all of those things, which I guess it's good that I am every time I say, well, maybe that's not good, actually. Every time I'm like, man, this is the worst loss of the season so far, they come out and they surprise me with an even worse and more annoying loss. So maybe that doesn't bode super well for the game against Pittsburgh on Friday. But to kind of get back to my point, you get to 5 or 6 losses in a row, and that's a really hard streak to break. 2 losses in a row, fine, whatever. 3 losses in a row, a little concerning. 4 losses in a row, maybe start to worry. When you start getting to 5 and 6, that is hit the panic button. That is, everything's on fire. How do we fix this as fast as possible? And unfortunately, trying to fix it as fast as possible sometimes leads to cheating, leads to blown coverage, leads to, playing more offensively at the detriment to the defense of the team, which I think is a little bit what happened last night, of Blue Jackets pushing hard for a goal, and it takes 2 seconds. The puck goes the other way down the ice, and suddenly there's another Kraken goal to watch on repeat several times on the broadcast, So I don't know what the answer is to stop making it 7 losses in a row. I know that they need to stop it from being 7 losses in a row. Again, the Pittsburgh game feels like a great get-right game. The Montreal game feels like a great get-right game. But I also said that about the Kraken game, and about the Ducks game, and about the Sharks game. And, man, I don't know. At some point, they have to win a game. The team is not going to lose the next 70 games, 68 games left in the season. But man, it feels a little bit like that right now, doesn't it? And maybe that's me being like melodramatic or hyperbolic in some ways. I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little worried about how the team looks right now, because they've gone from to kind of this is kind of off track a little bit, but like this team has gone from at the beginning of November of oh well they lost, but they lost to a much better team and they it's a learning experience, to oh well they lost but they played the right way and they got goal leads, to oh well they lost but they dominated and got unlucky, to oh this was bad, this was a bad loss. Everyone should feel ashamed of it. No one should feel pleased with how that game went, except for maybe like that line of, again, Sean Corrali, Zach Aston Reese, and Kevin LeBanc, which, if that's your best line, you've got problems. No one was expecting the hot start to keep up, but we were not expecting like what is it? I think this is like 7 games in a row that they've been held to 2 or less, when in the first 8 games of the season, they'd scored 6 goals in 4 of those games, So, yep, the PDO man comes to collect, but I didn't think he was going to come to collect, A, this early, and B, this hard, And again, the scales will rebalance, They started like this, now they're like this. It will hopefully balance out in the middle. I still think that this team could finish the season as a 500 team. I'm pulling up their thing right now. They are at the bottom of the Metro, which, hello, old friend. They're 5-8-2, 12 points in 15 games. So like they're not massively away from 500, couple of wins on the bounce, they get to 7-8-2, then really you're only a point away from 500 at that point, but they have to win those 2 games. Game against Penguins is important. That's a big 4-point game because that's both the 2 points that the winning team gets and the 2 points that the losing team doesn't get. That will mean Columbus will draw even with Philadelphia, who is currently in 6th place, and will probably jump above them because of goal differential. So, like, if the Blue Jackets beat the Penguins on Friday, they could jump from 8th to 6th very, very quickly. So it's early enough in the season that I'm like, yeah, the 6-game losing streak isn't great, but it's not like the Blue Jackets are not down and out and dead in the water, in the same way that, like, the Sharks were dead in the water 10 games into the season, and the Sharks have, again, they've picked it up. They're above the Blue Jackets in the standings right now because, of course, they are. Blue Jackets, I think, are sitting at, 29th in the league, 30th in the league, 30th in the league. The only teams worse than them right now are the Canadiens and the Predators, which is wild considering how much money the Predators spent in free agency this offseason. The Canadiens are doing about as I think a lot of people expected them to. Again, the Blue Jackets' underlying stats are still like that. They have regressed a little bit, but they're still creating offense. It's not like they're getting absolutely battered and caved in every single game. That being said, you don't win games with advanced stats. You win games with goals. And the fact of the matter is the Blue Jackets aren't scoring goals right now. So they need to figure that out. Like, for me, that's the most important thing. Like, the goaltending is worrying. The defense is frustrating. But, like, you got to figure out the offense because that was always going to be how you were going to win games this season. You were never going to win games by leaning on the goaltending. As much as I love Elvis, he was, again, I maintain you need league average goaltending out of Elvis. And that's a winner to me. You look at what this team has kind of endured already this season, and you look at the roster that they're icing, like, it was always going to be a tough challenge for this team to outscore other rosters, but they were doing it at the beginning of the season. We know they can do it. I don't know why they stopped doing that, but I would love if they would start doing it again. And honestly, to me, that's the key to getting out of this is finding the goal scoring, finding out where the goals have gone. And again, they are still shooting the puck a lot. Eventually, those will start going in. They are currently 4th in the league in goals in shots for per game. They're shooting an average of 31.6 shots a game. And they are only allowing 28.9, which is, again, massively improved from last season. So, like, again, the fundamentals are there. They're just suffering because the goaltending has regressed and the shooting has fallen back down to earth. So it'll rebalance. I really do genuinely believe that it will rebalance. I don't think I don't think they'll get back to kind of the team that they were at the beginning of October. Like I said, 6 goals every other game for like 8 games straight. But they're also not going to be the team that scores 2 goals or fewer in 7 straight games. They will be somewhere in between that, which is not a satisfying thing because until they figure that out, it's probably going to be rough. But I don't know, maybe I'm just clinging to optimism because optimism is all we have, because we certainly don't have wins. But we'll figure it out. Or, well, I say they'll figure it out. Like, this team will be fine. And if they aren't, well, that's about what everyone expected, I still think this team is still playing with house money. This team still has a better record right now than what I would have expected 15 games into the season as of, like, September 1st. Or September 2nd or whatever, And then you add to that, Jenna being out long term, Ken Johnson being out long term. Ken Johnson should be back soonish, by the way. We hope. So, that'll help. It'll balance out. And if it doesn't, then I don't know. I think, and I've talked about this a little bit, but I think a lot of my optimism this season has come from like just having absolutely no expectations for this team in like a very justified and understandable way. I don't think anyone was expecting this team to do much this season for obvious reasons. Then there's nothing wrong with that. So the fact that they have like won any games at all and have like looked good at all really does feel a little bit like, oh, well, they're exceeding expectations. So I'm just going to kind of let this roll. If we get to this time next week and they still haven't won a game in the month of October, where we get to like November 20th, then maybe we'll be talking about something different. But as of right now, it's been a bad 2 weeks. Let's figure it out from there. 2 weeks is not the whole season. There is time to turn around. Do I think this is rock bottom? No. Do I think it's close to rock bottom? Yes. They have to start climbing though, because hitting rock bottom makes it real hard to get back out because those walls are slippery. And I'm going to stop that metaphor there, I think, before it gets really out of control. And also, I'm running a little bit long on time. So that's going to be it from me today. Thank you for listening, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Tomorrow, I thought we would check in with some prospects because some of the prospects are doing really quite well indeed. And I thought that would be more fun than lingering over whatever the heck is going on with the Blue Jackets right now. So tomorrow we're going to do a little prospect check-in, take a look at Luke Pinelli, take a look at William Whitelaw, Luca Morelli, all that good stuff coming up tomorrow on Locked on Blue Jackets. So until then, make sure you stay locked on.